Welcome to this edition of the Techies webinar series. My name is Sujit John, and I have with me my colleague Shilpa Fadnis. The two of us will moderate the discussion. We hope you and your families are staying safe and doing well. Our discussion today is in association with LogMeIn. LogMeIn is a Boston-based company that provides cloud-based remote connectivity services for collaboration, IT management, and customer engagement. It has an engineering center in Bangalore. Our discussion today is on the behavior and attitude towards cybersecurity in the hybrid workforce. India has witnessed a surge in cyber attacks since people started working from home early last year. That's when there was also a rapid adoption of digital services across the country. Government data shows that nearly 1.2 million cases of cyber attacks were reported in 2020, up nearly 3 times from 2019. On an average, 3,137 cybersecurity related issues were reported every day in 2020. So cybersecurity has become a big buzzword in recent times, especially since the COVID lockdown started. To discuss this, we have with us two very seasoned professionals.
We have Vikas Malhotra. Vikas is the head of enterprise business at LogMeIn. Vikas has over 2 decades of experience in helping organizations achieve substantial business outcomes by providing niche technology solutions. Prior to LogMeIn, Vikas has worked at Wipro, Dell, Symantec, Oracle, Entity Data. Welcome, Vikas.
Thanks.
And we have with us, welcome, Vikas. And we have with us Abhimanyu Saxena. Abhimanyu is a co-founder of InterviewBit and Scalar Academy. InterviewBit prepares you for tech interviews. Scalar Academy is an online accelerator program that enhances the coding skills of software professionals. Abhimanyu oversees the technical strategies of these ventures. Prior to this, Abhimanyu has held several engineering positions with Progress Software and Fab.com. Welcome, Abhimanyu.
Thank you, Shilpa.
Those who are viewing this can send in questions through the Facebook comment box. Shilpa and I will put them to Vikas and Abhimanyu. We'll start with a short presentation by Vikas, and then we'll get into a discussion. Over to you, Vikas.
Thank you so much, Sujit. Thank you so much, Shilpa, for the warm introduction. And over the next few minutes, what I'll try to do is I'll try to provide the audience and this panel a high-level glimpse of what you just mentioned, Sujit. Yes, cyber attacks have been rampant. And during the pandemic, while the world is struggling on one side with the infection, the cyber criminals are not leaving any stone unturned to give sleepless nights to organizations, especially the CISO community. And we are seeing that the best of the names, the best of the brands worldwide have been impacted with this cybercrime one way or the other. So just to get into the details, let's see what has changed right now. First of all, let's try and understand. We had office boundaries. All of us, we was working in some office, maybe hundreds, maybe in thousands or hundreds of thousands. Now, an organization like LogMeIn, imagine 4,000 people worldwide are actually now 4,000 offices in different parts of the world. So from 20 physical offices, we are actually 4,000 virtual offices. Within my home, I have a setup, and that's an office, right? And that takes me outside the boundaries. That takes me outside the security boundaries. But at the same time, for organizations, what we are seeing that employees are becoming more productive. Leave aside the initial finding their ground on working from home. But once things have settled in, we are seeing a spike in productivity. We are seeing a spike in work flexibility. Certainly, people are able to work whenever they want, from wherever they want. And at the same time, for organizations, this is no-brainer that this has added straight to the bottom line, whether it's with their physical marketing events costs, whether it's with their travel costs or with their real estate or whatever you say would have consumed or sorted out the bottom line, this has straight away added. So the hybrid model is here to stay for sure. And that certainly leaves any organization at a crossroad. So they have to continue moving forward with a hybrid culture, even for themselves and for their employees. Even if as much as an organization wants to have maximum people in the office, even if they come from a traditional old school of thought that working equates to in office, the employees have got used to in a different way of working, right? So even if people are waiting to get back to offices, I'm sure they'll come 1 day, 2 day, and in some of the high-paced cities, once you run into traffic, you will go back again and decide that, okay, probably once a month is fine to visit the office, right? And at the same time, what's happening is there's an increase in the digital threats. That's what you just mentioned, Sujit. So password managers come at the heart of this. And this is what I'm going to be touching upon. But let's look at some statistics, some interesting statistics, right? So this is some data from a Verizon report, which is published in May this year. Okay, Verizon did a survey of some of the leading organizations around 80 plus countries. And what they found out was that 85% of the breaches involved a human element. Very simple. I mean, this is a published report. They found out that what happened to the breaches, and the data set for this is close to 5,000 plus incidents. And these are incidents, but not declared breaches. But out of those, whatever was confirmed as a breach, 85% had human element at its center, out of which 61% had compromised credentials. So that means my user ID, my password, that's compromised. And we'll get into more details. And further, what's most startling is 70% is because of the privileged misuse. And what's this privileged misuse? That means employees having access to the data or application which they shouldn't be having in the first place. And 20% of these are using it in the wrong way that they shouldn't be using. So having access and then using that data. So that's something that organizations need to look at, that who has what kind of access first. And 96% of the breaches reported in APAC were financially motivated, which means very clear that the hackers asked for ransomware. 96% of the companies in Australia that were surveyed who confirmed the breaches, they said that there was an ask for ransomware and there was a financial motive behind it. And this number is just going to keep going up. So let's understand where the problem is first, right? LogMeIn publishes a report called Psychology of Passwords. And as per that report, it surveys individuals like you, me, from whether coming from technology backgrounds, non-technology backgrounds, traditional companies, modern IT companies, whatever way, MNCs. LogMeIn does a user level research. And this is some of the data that's like really emerged, and I thought I'll share it over here. 91% of the users use the same variation. They know it's a risk. They know it's a risk of using the same variation. They have admitted. But 66%, what they said was that they are very comfortable doing this thing, right? They felt that there's no need to change it. And this number has gone up. In 2018, this was low. This has been just going up. Why do you think this is happening? Because the digital footprint is just expanding. I need to do anything, there is a digital thing for me. I need to get a home service, there's a digital footprint for me. I need to start a mutual fund, a bank account, anything, there is something digital for me, and that mandates me to create an account. To create an account, I need a user ID and a password. So imagine my passwords are increasing and I'm just taking the same set of passwords everywhere. Right? Second, 80% are agreeing that the passwords compromised, they are concerned about it, but 48% say that if the application or their company does not mandate, they won't change it. So you understand the risk, but still won't change it. And this is something that, as I speak, we should also reflect on ourselves, that if my organization wouldn't mandate, am I being educated enough or concerned enough that because of my digital behavior, am I putting my organization or my personal world at risk? 77% users state that they are informed of the best practices. So their organizations are informing. The applications they use in their personal world are also informing them. They are well informed with the news also. But 54% of them, they want to keep a track by memorizing this. So with this, I'll just take a pause here and see if Abhimanyu has something to add over here. I did not want to make it one way. I'll probably want to check if Abhimanyu wants to add something here.
Absolutely, Vikas. And as you mentioned, a lot of behavioral patterns that we talked about from the industry, I can definitely relate a lot with it. There are multiple levels of, acceptance to the security risk that people have. The first level probably is ignorance, that, I do not even believe that there is any security risk to my business or to even my own private data. The second level is that, fine, I understand that there might be certain risks, but I do not really feel the need that I need to do it. And then the third level comes when, when a breach happens. And that is when often people say that, all right, a breach has happened. Now let's reactively, fix things. And which definitely, often a big downside of this approach, which is actually very, very common both in personal cybersecurity or in corporate cybersecurity, both exists, that this breach, the cost of this breach is very hard to predict. It might be all the way from few dollars worth of breach, or it might be even a multi-billion-dollar breach, which sometimes even takes down entire organizations, right? So until that happens, you cannot predict what this breach might cost. And definitely, then the right approach, I think, of course, in the rest of the session, we will be talking about that what might be some of the personal cautions or even corporate cautions that people can take to mitigate these risks.
Right. Thanks, Abhimanyu. Couldn't really agree to that.
Question before you go on. 54% actually try to memorize passwords. Must be a fairly limited set of passwords or something, no? Otherwise, it's so complicated.
I think so. I mean, no, it's because they just keep the same combination, or they are like reuse. They are still. So if I'm able to memorize, that means either it's easy, or it's a reused password, which I used last year in some application and I brought it here. So this is where the whole problem is, right? And if that site is hacked, there is a possibility that I, as a user, my information is available. If some other site is hacked, means I can still be hacked at some other site. So let's assume a simple site like abc.com. I don't know whether that exists, but hypothetically, it's a site where I just went to listen to some songs, right? And I created a user ID and a password. I'm not sharing any data, but I just have created a user ID and a password. And that password is my bank password also, right? So if Vikas Malhotra is identified as a user on a very simple site and the password is breached, the mistake I have done is I've reused the same password.
Right.
And here's another statistic from them, that when asked that why they reuse the passwords, 60% agreed that they are afraid of forgetting the login information. At the same time, 52% felt to be in control. And this is very natural with us, right? We want to be in control of our passwords. We just don't want to grapple around. I'm sure many of us have made this mistake or continue to make this mistake of having an Excel sheet, a password protected Excel sheet of user IDs and passwords, right? The footprint has grown so much. I mean, we could deny it, but yes, somewhere we would have done it or probably continue to do that. So let's look at some of the potential threats because of passwords, right? Where are some of the causes because of this thing? Is 67% password reusing or same password, 65% is weak password. Vikas @1976. That can be as weak as anything, because my entire data, everything with my date of birth, everything is available in the world outside, right? Company data getting leaked, social media hacking, but look at the first two numbers. These first two numbers is something that I want to get the attention to. This is from a research of all the breaches that have happened actually. And that's where the problem is. So this certainly brings me to this one of the favorite pictorial representations of this boxing ring, that on one side, we have the firewall, the encryption, the antivirus software, everything. All investments have been made, the dollars have been spent, that we have best incident reporting, we have proactive management, all softwares. And on the other side, we have Dave. And Dave is nothing but a human error. And let's not have that Dave within us. I mean, we all have that Dave. It's just about the Dave, and because of Dave, the organization loses, right? The organization comes under risk. So I'm just hoping that this is providing some sort of a clarity on the point that I'm trying to make. Moving forward, let's look at how are hackers approaching. Hackers don't straight away hack in. It's not a breaking of a door. So they just log into an enterprise system and reside over there and decide their next move. Why? Because they don't use manual permutations and combinations to break into passwords. They run advanced programs. And with that, once they are in the system, they will just reside there and probably monitor the activity. And I think the biggest thing they are monitoring is how much of this, how much ransomware they could ask for, how much for ransomware they could hold that organization for. And this data represents the external threats. You look at the red line, and this is mostly Asia Pacific specific. The red line, 2019, it has, if we look at the average, is 73 days. That means a hacker, on an average, resides for 73 days in an enterprise. Now, with best of the technologies and more adoption towards password managers, things are changing. This number has still come down to 50, 55 days, but it's still more than a month. I mean, just imagine a hacker who's there to steal the data. Their intent is malicious, very clearly. I'm not talking about ethical hackers here. I'm talking about hackers with malicious intent in your system, residing and deciding their next move, right? But they may decide that it's not even worth making a breach. The organization itself does not have enough merit for the breach. But then you never know. So this is how the hackers do. And on the other side, let's look at from employees and IT department, right? What are employees saying? So there are challenges for employees, but a set of employees that make the IT department in an organization. I'm not going to go through all the numbers, but this is just for a glance that IT department is struggling. That look at the top problems. That is where they are talking about that they are resetting the password. What do we do? Hello, IT help desk, I forgot my password. Can you help me reset this thing? Very simple. For us, it's very simple going back to them. But there is a certain level of SLA that they measure themselves on. There's a certain level of deliverable that they have to do. And look at how their productivity gets impacted if they have to do this throughout as a major frontline activity. So with this, the point I'm trying to make is identify a solution, identify a password management solution before we embrace any other technology. The point is a healthy password management solution which helps employees remember passwords, create passwords, autofill passwords, and actually forget their passwords. They don't have to remember any other passwords except for one. Secondly, gives the CISO, gives him or her a view of the health of the hygiene of the passwords at a high level, that who's using what kind of passwords, what kind of strength, and how are the passwords being shared between people. There are many areas, especially the shadow IT, where passwords just have to be shared between people for better productivity, so-called. And that is where the risk lies. And this better productivity happens with internally as well as with external vendors also. So some of the benefits that organizations have spoken about, and these are LastPass users, when researched, they have said that they felt 69% of said increased security, eliminating risk, saving time. I mean, that's a huge, huge saving of time. And we have done multiple proof of concepts around this to arrive at this data. So with this is my last slide. So first is get an access management solution. So LastPass is nothing but a combined access, authenticate, and identity solution. It's a identity management, comprehensive identity management solution, which starts with the password management at its core and brings in the benefits of SSO and MFA, biometric-based multi-factor authentication. So that's what completes the whole picture of a comprehensive identity access management. Otherwise, we will have Dave in one corner and the best of the technologies in the other corner. That's what will continue to happen. So with this, thank you so much. That's end to my presentation, and I'm open for discussion.
So just your audio. Yeah, not able to hear you.
Sorry. Yeah, I was asking Abhimanyu whether you wanted to add something to this. Are you using a passwordless system?
Right. No, so we do, but of course, I'm sure that we might want to further improve the security systems. But using a password manager at an individual level is definitely something I have been doing for quite some time, and I would definitely very strongly recommend that that is something that we all should do. As Vikas was saying, that the first thing is that often it's a natural human tendency that I would want to, when setting a password, I would want to set a password that I can remember. So habitually, I think that is one thing that, like, if you can remember your password, that in itself might be an indicator that it's a bad password, right? But then an obvious second question is that if I cannot remember my password, how am I going to log in, right? And that is where any password manager becomes a very useful and like definitely, of course, there are quite a few free or freemium or premium password managers available out there. But even if you are even at an organization level, I think two things that we all should consider very seriously is that one, try to not keep any passwords that you can remember, because if you can remember it, there is definitely some pattern, and if there is some pattern, then a hacker can always easily hack it, right? So first, try to keep a password that you cannot remember, and then of course, like, do not fall into prey that fine, I cannot remember the password, so I will write them down somewhere and keep it, because then you are increasing the risk. You use password manager. Of course, some might ask a question that even if I'm using a password manager, my password are stored there, and then that might still be a security risk. But then I think an important technical aspect to understand there is that when you are using a password manager, it's not your passwords that it stores. It stores a heavily encrypted version of your password. So even if someone gets access to it, they will not get your passwords, but only you can use this manager to kind of log into a service wherever you want. I think definitely, all the firewalls or, all the encryption mechanisms, they are definitely helpful. But one biggest defense line is having passwords that people cannot predict.
Okay. Okay, there's just a reminder to those who are viewing this. You can send in your questions through the Facebook comment box. Shilpa and I'll put them to Vikas and Abhimanyu. Vikas, I mean, so tell me, I mean, so basically it's an application that resides in your laptop or mobile, and it kind of whenever you are, well, how does it work? When you open an application where you are using your password, the password gets automatically saved, is it?
Yep. So there are multiple ways to use it. So yes, there is a browser-based plugin and there is a mobile app. If you're using it on the mobile, there's a mobile app. And if you're using it on your laptop or on the browser, there's a plugin. So every time I open an application which LastPass remembers. So let's say I'm starting a new application altogether, right? Something first. So my LastPass plugin will see that and will know that I have never been here. So moment I have created a new account, create account, create a password, my account is ready. Immediately LastPass will pop up and say, hey, do you want me to remember this? I don't have it in my vault. Do you want me to remember this? And I'll be like, yes, do remember. And then that's it. And I would have just created a random password. It will just remember that. Next time I get onto that application again, I'll see a LastPass button over there, which will just help me that, do you want me to fill it in? LastPass will ask me, or you want to do it yourself. So if I just click on those two buttons and my user ID and password is already filled in. So I'm done with that. So that's how it works on the browser. Other way I could do it is I could go into the LastPass website. I can log in with my master password, and that opens a vault. And my vault presents, so I can open it in the morning. I can open my vault in the morning, and from there I can open my bank account. I can open my Gmail. I can open my Facebook from the vault. Instead of opening a new browser and typing in every day, I just launch it from there. It says launch. And when I launch it, it has already populated my user ID password. I'm just ready to click submit, and I'm ready to enter. So 6 months down the line, if I'm using an application, let's say income tax department website, we use it once a year, right? Or max twice a year, right? Now, do you really need to remember that password? Probably yes, because it's a very critical website, right? You're filing your returns. But honestly, I don't know the password because I launched it from LastPass, and I've been doing that since the time I've been a user of LastPass for the last 5 years. So I still don't know it, but I effectively not even once I have actually struggled with it.
Okay, interesting. Somewhat similar to what Google Chrome and all nowadays. I find. I mean, they urge you to save your password. I mean, some kind of password management that they have, right?
To some extent, I would say yes, and I'll tell you where the main difference is. For them, the main intention is to increase the stickiness to their browser. Okay, let's understand that. While they are offering it as a tool to help you, the underlying objective is to increase the stickiness so that every time you do something, you launch it from Google browser. That's point number one. So as an individual capacity, fair enough, it's just remembering the password. But from an organization standpoint, let's say all you employees are using, many employees in the organization start using Google Chrome. The CISO still does not have a view of what's happening, this risk, the threat, and especially when there is a breach, when your data is published in the dark web. So we don't get those alerts. We don't get the alerts. Google Chrome will not give alerts if your password is shared with somebody to your organization. So here I'm starting with the individual behavior, but trying to mitigate the risk for the organization.
Okay. Quite a few questions coming in. Shilpa, I'll just ask one of those. I've got one is from Nishita Kumar asking, how do B2C product companies who have a varied set of user base nudge users to have better cybersecurity practices?
Yeah, I think Abhimanyu could take that. He's in the B2C side of the business. Yep.
Absolutely. So, like I can take even example of Scalar Academy, right? That we would have tens of thousands of software professionals doing our courses, and of course, they might be using various services, various learning services on the platform using their login credentials, right? Now, one is that, of course, if so I will talk about first how, as an organization, do we ensure that your data is safe with us, right? We understand that the password that a learner at Scalar Academy might keep for Scalar Academy, it is possible that they might be using the same password for their bank as well, right? Now, it is, as an organization, my responsibility that even if there is a breach in my database, it should not impact you as a user. And to ensure that, what we will do as an organization is that we are not even going to save your password in our database, right? We are, before saving in our database, again, we are going to encrypt it and then save it. What that would like this might be something surprising for a lot of non-tech users, that when you save a password, when you create an account, any mature company with good security protocols, they are not even going to save your password. They don't know what your password is. But then the question might be, then how do they know that when I'm trying to log in, whether my password is correct or not? How they know is that they will save the encrypted version of whatever password you have saved. Every time you try to log in, they will encrypt your input again and then match that against what your encrypted and saved password was. If that matches, they will let you log in, and if that doesn't, they wouldn't. What this ensures is that even if, let's say, my database gets, a hacker gets access to my database, but then they will not be able to use it on your bank. So even if your password of Scalar and, let's say, Axis Bank was same, but even then a user, even if that gets access to the passwords of Scalar, they will not be able to log into your Axis Bank. So that is one. But at the same time, also, I would also not want to ensure that someone cannot misuse your account as well. And various ways to, as the question asked that, why do we ask to change password at a certain frequency? Or let's say when you are setting the password, we will ask you a certain parameter. So for example, I might set a password policy that you cannot use your first name and last name in your password. You cannot use, let's say, characters in sequence as your password, because all the cybersecurity researchers, they have seen that these are the patterns which are very, very easy to crack. As a hacker, what I can do is, let's say if I was a person with the knowledge of security systems and I want to crack into your password, what I will do is I will write a code. I'm not going to try all the combinations of password manually. I will write a code. I will run that code on a very strong computer, which can, let's say, do millions of computations every second. And then I would be able to, let's say, try out millions of password combinations against your account within a day. And then let's say if I am able to run, let's say if I take entire dictionary, let's say if I take those 50,000, 100,000 words and start making all the possible combination of 2-3 words along with your name and try them all, then like probably in a day or two, I will naturally end up at what your password might be. Right. However, as I was saying earlier that if you put a password which is absolutely random, which say doesn't have any words, it is just random combination of a number, some characters or symbols, then of course I can even then try to build the combinations, but computationally suddenly the problem becomes so hard that now I might need to run this combination scripts for 100 years before I can reach your password. Right. So that is why that is why companies keep asking you that keep changing your password. They will force you to keep a password which doesn't use common words, your name, first name, last name, etc. Because again, as I mentioned, that if you use common words or dictionary words, or let's say a combination of your first name, last name, date of birth, etc., you are kind of inviting a hacker to very easily guess your password and enter into your accounts where you definitely do not want an unauthorized access.
Yeah. Shilpa?
Yeah, we have some questions coming in. This one is from Ishwar Shivakumar. How do password management systems who store our passwords in their backend ensure data security?
Because do you want to take that, or would you want to? Of course, this is a little bit about cryptography, which might be a very interesting topic for many of our users to hear about as well.
Yeah, I think from a technical standpoint, Abhimanyu, I believe you can do that best, but I can speak about LogMeIn at a very high level. As what Abhimanyu said, it is saved in an encrypted format. So that means even if that particular LastPass vault is hacked, a hacker does not get access to the data because it's decrypted only at the device level. So if it's viewed only at the device level and not in the vault. So in the vault, it's completely in the encrypted format. So that's where we take complete ownership, and that's how the architecture is designed. So we call it zero knowledge architecture. So much so that if an organization, let's say for some reason, gets into some sort of a legal issue and authorities expect us to give the passwords of the applications, we don't do that. We can't do that. That's how the architecture is made. It's that safe.
Right. To double click on the encryption, because if I just assume that some of our audience might not be from the computer science fraternity, so in their interest, what encryption simply means is that let's say if there is a piece of data, let's say if you were writing a letter to your friend and you do not want anyone else to be able to read that letter, one technique that even actually encryption is nothing new. It is not even about computer science, but humanity have been using encryption for thousands of years. Where the simple technique is that you will encode the content of your letter in a way where only your friend know how to decode that. A very basic encryption approach might be that, let's say, whatever sentence I'm writing, I'm going to shift every single character one word next. Let's say if I were to write Vikas, I will use the character next to Y, next to I, next to K, and then write. Now let's say whoever I'm sending this message to, only that person knows that I have to shift it back one word behind it to actually make sense out of it. Right? What it benefits that even if someone in between gets this data, he will not be able to make any sense out of it because he or she doesn't know that how to make sense out of whatever is written. Right? So similarly, as Vikas mentioned, that whenever your password is stored in a password manager, they are not going to store it as it is. They are going to make some changes into it, which anyone who gets access to it, they have no way to reverse encrypt it or decrypt it. Right? Only the password manager will have a key using which it can be decrypted. So basically, if your passwords are stored in any password manager which uses an encryption, any form of encryption, you can always remain at peace that this cannot be misused. And this is, just logical. It's just because, and of course, the example of encryption that I took, that is very, very simple. The actual encryption algorithms that these systems use, they're very advanced. It is impossible to break them. Like, of course, I would say close to impossible, because in security sciences, there is nothing which is impossible, but it is exceptionally hard for anyone to break them.
Yeah, well, that's what I wanted to quickly ask you about. I mean, there are people who say quantum computers might be able to break today's encryptions. Is that true?
Well, to some extent, actually, I would say that a normal computer might also be able to break it, but it might need 200 years for that. Right? Okay. And which practically says that, yeah, fine, it's going to take one computer to take 200 years. However, now what quantum computing does is that, as opposed to traditional computation, where, everything is in binary, right? Everything is 0 or 1. The quantum computation, paradigm basically increases it to multiple more dimensions. So basically, the computation power of a quantum computer increases exponentially. So what computation a traditional binary computer might be able to do in 200 years, maybe a very advanced quantum computer might be able to do that, maybe in 1 year or maybe in 1 month. So, like, good thing is that, one, hackers do not have access to quantum computers yet. They are exceptionally expensive devices, often costing millions of dollars. Second is that even quantum computers, like, if it is a very solid encryption algorithm, it might still be, it might not be 200 years, it might be 10 years. But maybe when then it is fairly strong.
Okay. I have this question from Samshri Holi asking. He's asking about fingerprints. What are the advantages, disadvantages of using fingerprint-based authentication instead of a password?
So basically, biometric, I will probably maybe extend that to not just fingerprint, but it might be retina scan or facial recognition or your fingerprint. So any biometric. Because do you want to take this one?
You can go on, Abhimanyu. I'll just add on to that.
Absolutely. So one of the most interesting point that I'll tell you that when we have any, let's say, even encrypted but a textual password or any content-based password, one biggest factor is that it can be shared. It can get copied over, right? However, when it is about biometric, and for it's just something with the nature that we all have gotten, that there are certain unique patterns which exist with us, be it fingerprint, be it your iris scan, be it your facial patterns. They are very, very unique, right? It is impossible for anyone to copy them, right? Of course, so if I'm using any of the biometrics for my authentication, the benefit it gives is that until and unless I am present, it cannot be accessed. Now, one can see it as a pro, and there is also some cons as well. The pro is, of course, that if I'm not there, it cannot be opened, right? But at the same time, there might be cases when you do want someone else to access, while you might not be physically present at the location where you want someone to access what you have. But in case of a biometric access, you just cannot do that. And so, for example, let's say I might have an overseas bank account where I want certain transactions done there. And if I have only biometric authorization for that, I might have to just fly down there and then do it. Otherwise, probably through an encrypted channel, I could have shared my password, and then some trusted associate of mine, he might have been able to do it on my behalf, right? So these are, I would say, let's say I can give a simile that, let's say, having a house lock with a key versus having a house lock which has a password, right? Now, if I have a house lock with a key, even if my friends want to go to visit, or my relative want to visit my home, I can give them the key, they can open the house and they can sit peacefully at home, right? But if it is so, but the fact is that they will still have to come to me and take the keys, right? However, on the other hand, if it's a biometric lock at your home, unless you go to home, the home will not open, right? So of course it is more secure, but at the same time, sometimes it also puts some restrictions.
Okay. Because
I just wanted to add, and that is where with the pros and cons Abhimanyu just mentioned, it's extremely, that's one of the reasons why we are not seeing 100% biometric authentication. It's like always followed by a password credentials. So first you enter your credentials, and as a second factor authentication is where you bring in your biometric, because there, for the very reason, it's like still we are not there yet, and there could be situations where we need a retina scan or the fingerprint to access something, and that's where the passwords come in very handy, any level. So we are still evolving, and we are still not there. From a security standpoint, this is extremely fair, but it has its limitation in terms of the restrictions it imposes.
Okay. Shilpa?
Questions. Yeah, this
Yeah,
question is from
a lot of questions coming in. Yeah.
Yeah. Sayan Mandal. Is there any free password management app available? If yes, how secure are these?
I'll take that, and the answer is yes. LastPass is available, free of cost. It's available from Apple Store, from Play Store. Please download it, start using it, and read the ratings. Do the test yourself. See what the users of LastPass are saying. You could go to the website, understand the security features, and then you could start using it. I mean, while I immediately latched onto this saying LastPass, yes, but a good, genuine behavior is to start using a password manager. Start off with that. We have LastPass, and we are respectfully competing with some of the leaders in the industry. So the key is start taking your digital footprint behind a password manager.
So is that something that a lot of organizations are now beginning to? I mean, what is the trend? Lots of companies using password managers.
I would say that yes, lots of companies are realizing to the need of the password managers, given the breaches that have been reported in the past. Okay, so and these breaches were with some of the technologically advanced companies, which had, you remember that pictorial diagram, Dave in one corner and the best of the systems and procedures everywhere, right? So that's what exactly happened. Point number two, as I see the Indian data protection bill going through several drafts, and I'm not sure which session of parliament will it be presented, but there is a clause which mandates organizations to report a breach. We did not have anything like that before. So GDPR has it, Japan, data protection law in Japan has it, Singapore has it, Australia, New Zealand, whole of European Union, America, they have such things. That means organizations are supposed to report a breach. Even if they know it, they are supposed to report a breach. Now, with this law coming in, what will happen is password managers will become more of from a compliance perspective, it will kick in, right? Organizations will start awakening to the fact that why these are important. And let's accept it. A lot of security infrastructure investment is done from a compliance perspective also. Whether you like it or you don't like it, a consultant has said, government has mandated, and a lot of solutions have come into the infrastructure. So yes, we are seeing a spike. Secondly, India as a services hub for BPOs and IT companies, their customers are in US and European Union, and they are mandating the organizations to use password managers or such solutions if they have to touch their data. So it's extremely important to be in compliance with your customers' compliance laws. So we are certainly seeing an upward trajectory in demand.
Okay. I have a question. I don't fully understand it myself, but this is from Alvaro Ricci asking, password encryptions also have some standard encryption types like MD5, SHA-1, SHA-2, etc. What if these encrypted passwords get decrypted? Isn't our data in danger? Okay, I don't fully understand this question. Abhimanyu.
Absolutely. So as they mentioned that there are of course various different encryption mechanisms, SHA-1, SHA-2, or MD5, etc. Now there are 2 points. One is that there are 2 kinds of encryption algorithms. One is one-to-one encryption, and the other is one-to-many encryption. Right? What one-to-one encryption versus one-to-many encryption mean is that, let's say there is there is an input password, and consider this as a black box of machine which your password goes in and a different sentence comes out of it, right? However, when you try to reverse it, there might be, when you put in the reverse password in it, it would give you not one password, but it will probably give you 20 passwords, right? So that way the complexity space increases so much, right? So there is always a possibility, as I was saying earlier, that there's always a possibility that someone, writes a script to, generate all the possible combinations and try it out. However, no one would be able to say with 100% confidence that this is what your password was, right? And given computationally, the space is so big, like one might say that if someone steals the encrypted data and tries to decrypt it, they will have to potentially try, hundreds of millions of combinations at least before, like it's more like, let's say someone saying that someone wanted to find a needle, then they will be presented with a million needles, and now out of those million needles they have to review each one by one and figure out which one was yours, right? Fine, theoretically one may do it, but the time taken to do it often might be even thousands of years, like with the kind of latest computers that we have. So practically that says that one cannot do that, right? Of course, there might be an argument that someone creates, a multi-dimensional computation system which works at million times faster than current computers and then be able to do it. But practically, as of today, with the latest cutting edge technology, one cannot do that.
Cannot. Okay. Shilpa?
Vijay, we have this question from Prasanna Som. If I've been using a password management system like LastPass for the last few years and now decide to stop using it, what happens to all my passwords? Will the LastPass give me a backup of all the passwords I have used?
That's interesting.
Short answer. Yep. So it's a simple question that you are a free user of LastPass. You have all the passwords in the vault, and right now what you intend to do is you want to stop using that. So as I mentioned, we work on a zero knowledge architecture. We don't know your passwords. Even if you forget your master password, I can't help you. So, and that defeats the purpose of a password manager. If I have the ability to give you back your passwords, that defeats the whole purpose of the password manager. So if somebody is doing that for you, you think again before using that password manager.
Right.
Can you transfer that encrypted into something else? You can't.
I won't do that. As I said, I won't even do it for the federal authorities.
Sorry, Abhimanyu.
The only thing to be sorry, go on, Abhimanyu.
No, I was just saying that not only because I think it's very important to emphasize that not only you do not want to do it, the fact is that you cannot do it because the architecture itself doesn't even store your password. And that is what should give you confidence that this is a very secure system, right? It is a system where even if, let's say, even if Vikas says that let's give back the password, he cannot because he doesn't have your password itself.
Okay. So technically it's not possible, is what you're saying.
It's not possible. It's not just a company decision, but it's like, I would say that it's a company decision at another level that we will save data in a way where we don't even have it.
Okay.
So if there is a password manager which is giving you a feature of being able to export all your password, you should not be using that password manager. That indicates that they have implemented in an insecure way.
Okay. I have a question here from Srivatsala Jandiala. I work in an MNC where we have to update both our login password and the VPN password every month. Is it a good enough cybersecurity practice? What is the reasoning behind it? Because the answer is, so long as you can remember the password, it's fine.
And that's the key. So what the organization is trying to do is organization is trying to just update the strength of the password. I would rather request this person who asked this question. Sorry, I missed your name, but it's very important that when you reset the password, so please, when you reset the password, do not go back to an old password. So let's say you are resetting your password in July, do not put in a May password, right? Don't let your password be May at the rate of 2021, June at the rate of 2021, July at the rate of 2021, and put your organization at risk. While you will be at ease, you and the organization would be at risk.
Yeah, this is what our company also says, no, Shilpa? Passwords, VPN passwords and all, they make us change.
Yeah.
But
And
not-
I'm sure that's not a great time when they give a deadline. By this time, change your password, and that
Not at
goes
all.
on to reinstate the point that I made. While if not told, we will not change it, right? Not
Absolutely,
realizing.
absolutely. No, we often miss the deadline, and then we have to call up some call center somewhere, and oh, that's again one big irritation.
Yeah.
Shilpa,
So this is also
sorry, Abhimanyu, you were
in the
saying something.
in the cybersecurity circles, this is also a philosophical debate that is it even a good practice to force people to change their passwords very frequently? Because when you do, that again means that humans will resort back to keeping passwords they can easily relate to. What that might lead to is people having weaker passwords, right? Versus maybe even forcing people to have much more complicated passwords. And if it is a very complicated password, it's fine. Let them have it for longer time.
Okay. Shilpa?
Hi, Sujit. We have this question from Samshri. How does authentication change when your face, fingerprints, iris change with age?
Let me take that. Long back I had worked on a couple of, and this is little bit related to biology and little bit related to computer science. So this is one very interesting fact that while in person we might say that of course faces do change over time, right? However, one very interesting thing is that there are certain contours or facial structures which are identified. Like actually now we live in a world where we have made very substantial advances in the field of image recognition, machine learning, and AI. As a matter of fact, even someone at let's say age of 18 versus the same person's face at an age of 50, computers can tell you that it's the face of same person, or it's not the face of same person. It's even more so for your fingerprints. Fingerprints, one thing does happen with fingerprints actually, that particularly people who do a lot of manual labor work, sometimes they're the kind of anyone who is doing a lot of work with their hands, so their fingerprints sometimes do get erased. It just gets flattened out. This is actually a very interesting point. A case study from UIDAI project, when they wanted to kind of link Manrega payments, Manrega payments to the finger scan. That project got stalled because a lot of these manual workers didn't, their fingerprints were not working because they are kind of all flattened out. And I have one of my friends who run a startup who implemented a very interesting system where actually interestingly on the back of our palm as well there are a specific pattern that is unique to everyone. So then Manrega scheme started using the pattern on the back of the palm to identify the unique pay holders instead of the front of the palm, because front of the palm gets wiped out, right? So of course with biometrics there are certain limitations that like one might even argue that what if my fingerprints are not there anymore because of whatever reason, right? However, iris scan is something which remains very, very unique throughout the life. Facial patterns remain unique throughout the life. While on the top it might look like that face has changed a lot, but the contours of the face or the facial structure, they remain pretty much the same.
Okay, that's very interesting. The back of the palm. Okay, I'm just looking at my palm to see whether. Okay, that's it. I have heard this about manual workers that their fingerprints go off. I mean, you can't. So yeah, that's interesting. Another very interesting question here from Anjali Singhal, asking if a password manager like LastPass is not storing the passwords anywhere, how does it feed the password to services like Gmail or Facebook when I want to log in? Can you please explain the backend once again?
So the backend is physical. Probably Abhimanyu can do it for me, for my behalf, but it's a simple thing. It is
Right.
in an encrypted format. It is just decrypted through the same architecture, through the same program, and presented to you, so for you to view it. It's as simple as that. So I'm making it sound simple, but if you need a technical explanation, I'll seek Abhimanyu support over here.
Yeah, I will maybe kind of try to make it even simpler. So LastPass does save something about your password. It doesn't save your password, but it saves something about your password using which it is able to help you. So let's say I will explain maybe it with a very simple example. Let's say if your password was very simple, ABCD, right? And let's say instead of SHA-1 or MD5, these advanced algorithm, for illustration, we use a very simple encryption algorithm where I simply say that the passwords are going to be transformed to the index number of the alphabet. So ABCD password will be saved as 1, 2, 3, 4. So what LastPass will store as your password is 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And when it is filling out your password, there is just this code which tells that 1, 2, 3, 4 will map back to ABC. Right? So LastPass is never saving your password, but it is saving a representation of your password. And using that representation, it can fill back your password. However, even if LastPass's database gets compromised, no one will have access to your password because they have no way to know that ABCD translates to 1, 2, 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4 translates to ABCD.
Okay. Is that what is also called encryption?
This is the dumbest encryption possible. This is the simplest encryption possible. Of course, the real encryptions are much more advanced. The MD5, SHA-1, SHA-2 that we were talking about, they're much more complicated. There is, they kind of do various operations in Euclidean space and make sure that, it's not that easy to kind of reverse them either. Or there can be, for example, ABCD will translate to 1, 2, 3, 4, but 1, 2, 3, 4 probably will reverse translate to 100 different options. So of course that is, it's cryptography. Those of you who might have seen the movie Imitation Games, they might be able to relate that how fascinating cryptography in general is, and how fascinating all these algorithms are. But I think that is for some other day. It might take me an hour or two to explain all of it.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, a lot of questions came in. It's a fascinating subject, and it's a problem that plagues everybody. So, everybody keeps saying, don't save it anywhere, don't save your passwords anywhere, create complicated passwords, and then they tell you to memorize it, which is practically impossible. Shilpa, any more questions?
Not yet, Sujit. Yeah.
Okay. Vikas, what? Even credit card details and all that, no problem. All safe, is it? If they save it?
100%. And I'm telling you, I have all my card numbers, my PAN, my Aadhaar card with picture, everything stored in LastPass. And it's shared in a way with my wife that my policy, insurance policy, my vehicle policy, everything, that when she needs it, she has access to that much only. Whatever I have given her access. The applications I have not given access, she does not have it. So storing everything and sharing whatever you want with whoever you want and with for whatever duration you want. Look at it from a corporate perspective. I have a third-party vendor working on my application. I want to give him access to certain tools, certain applications in the environment. One is I give him the password, simply that login. But the right way is, let's say I tell him, you have access, but you still don't know the password, and you have access from this time to this time only. After that, your access revokes. So that's the right way, and I can monitor that. From a policy, I can set that up. So that's where the whole picture comes full circle, from employee user behavior to organizations embracing it. That's actually the complete picture from an organization perspective.
Okay. One last question. This had come early on. At that point I did not ask, but as you say, 96% of cybersecurity attacks are financially motivated. He says he remembers this. We once heard from a CIO of a non-tech company that taking a cybersecurity insurance is basically inviting hackers to come and hack your systems. Your take on this? He never took insurance.
I would say do it. This is, the fact that it's there, the fact that companies are increasing their offerings on cybersecurity insurance and more players are coming in, and it's been taken so that, and by the way, a CISO does not invest from his pocket in a cybersecurity insurance. It's at an organization wide, and a CFO signs a check. So that means they see the value. They see the value with the risk that Abhimanyu said is not known. So you pay a known amount for a risk to mitigate the risk or to recover the risk which is not known.
Okay.
We have one more question. This is from Maro Ricky. Can I get suggestions for some cybersecurity books? And also advice on career in cybersecurity, both.
Abhimanyu, that's for you. Or Vikas, whatever.
Maybe you can take the first dig and I can.
Go ahead. I seriously have no knowledge of the books, but what I could say is you could go to lastpass.com, go to the resources section and download a lot of content that will give you a head start in understanding what cybersecurity is all about, what security is all about and what cybersecurity is all about. And that should be a good start. Rest I'll allow Abhimanyu to suggest.
Right. No, so to be very candid, one thing that I very strongly believe is that learning is supposed to be fun. And actually, as a matter of fact, the world of computer science, cryptography, security is so fascinating that, once you immerse yourself into it, it almost becomes a, kind of passion to just know more about it and figure things out. And of course, as there are plenty of movies where, they show hackers and like doing pretty fascinating stuff, or the heroes kind of doing stuff to prevent that. As a very realistic kind of explanation to it, I will very strongly recommend watch the movie Imitation Games. It's a very fascinating movie, of course, very entertaining at the same time. You will understand a lot of fundamentals behind cryptography and encryption, etc. Actually, as a precursor, it's a movie about the life of one of the most celebrated mathematician of all the time, Alan Turing. Actually, another interesting thing I may share, that many of us, like I'm sure all of us, would have used some Apple product at one time or other, right? I'm not sure, but it is a very commonly believed believed thing in the computer science society, that the Apple's logo, which is a half-eaten apple, is actually a tribute to Alan Turing, who is considered the father of cryptography. And the reason, because Alan Turing had committed suicide by eating an apple, a poisoned apple. Actually, also it is said that Alan Turing had cracked the Germans' cryptography code. So Germans used to send their messages in encrypted format, and Alan Turing was able to build a device which is decrypt that, and which led to the war in Second World War. So now if you see that, like this simple technique of cryptography and, encryption, how much impact it has had on the world already, right? And potentially how much damages it can cause as well, right? So while on the outside it might sound, the security, encryption, password management might sound, often we ignore it, but an entire world war was won because of applications of principles of cryptography. Actually, this is also a fun fact, that World War II was won not by the warplanes or the mortars or the shells, but it was won by cryptography. So I think the movie would be great. There are some very fascinating books that you guys can also, there is one I remember, Countdown to Zero Day. That's a very fascinating book on encryption and cryptography that you guys might want to read. And I think another section of the question was also about the careers in cybersecurity. So that is also something I will definitely say, that actually, as technology is progressing, cybersecurity is becoming a more and more important field, right? Because like each decade, more and more of our life, software and technology is eating the world. Today, I think, of course, post-COVID, we are all just doing our entire jobs online, right? And when all of our activities are online, it's super important now. Probably, like back in, let's say 10 years back, a lot of expense was on physical security, right? There will be people who will spend, organizations, etc., spend a lot of money on physical securing the premises. Now, when we have entirely become virtual, all of that, of course, needs to be the similar amount of efforts need to be taken for the virtual security. And that means that we do need massive amount of cybersecurity experts. That's a very, very fascinating field. However, one mistake that often people make is that you can only be good with cybersecurity if you are really good with computer science first. If you do not understand computer science, if you do not understand how bits and bytes work, you cannot know just something about security and actually be good at it. So, anyone who is interested in actually making a career in cryptography, I think the first step is learn the fundamentals of computer science, learn problem solving really well, learn, how do computers work, how does operating system work. You definitely should be a master at Linux, play around with, the bare bone of computers, but definitely, cyber security experts definitely are one of the best paid professions as of today.
Good note to end on. Absolutely. Practically everybody now we speak to as journalists. Cybersecurity is on top of their minds. This lockdown and COVID and all that has simply so enormously increased the sense of why we need cybersecurity. Absolutely. And thanks so much, Vikas and Abhimanyu. Wonderful discussion. This is absolutely a topic that is of general interest, and no wonder we got so many questions.